Hey gang, welcome to Alpine Endurance. The purpose of this video is to present a scientific literature that documents how best to maximize our green zone 2 aerobic work. Enjoy. It is well established that rates of fatty acid oxidation increase until approximately 65% of maximal oxygen uptake. So we're burning the most amount of fat when we're at our aerobic threshold is what this is saying. And the key takeaway on this, gang, is that number one, as endurance athletes, we want to operate as a fat burning zone as much as possible. And that 65% is a highly trainable number. So an elite endurance athlete, they have trained their aerobic threshold to be much closer to their absolute max capacity as possible. And the weekend warrior, we have a bigger spread between our aerobic threshold and our max capacity. So this is highly trainable, and that's why we have so many green zone 2 sessions. Perhaps the most fundamental determinant of whole body fat oxidation rate is exercise intensity. The relationship between exercise intensity and fat oxidation is generally parabolic, so a bell curve, with fat oxidation initially increasing with exercise intensity before declining at high work rates. So yes, this is essentially saying the same thing as before, but the take-home message on this one, gang, is don't forget your high-intensity red interval work. If you have a higher VO2 max than your buddy, and you're both cruising along at the same output, you, with a higher VO2 max, are operating at a lower relative exercise intensity. Hey there, team. So let's look at this paper here that studied fat and carbohydrate metabolism in relation to exercise intensity and duration. So what this study did is they had cyclists complete exercise at 25% of VO2 max, 65% of VO2 max, which is at their aerobic threshold, and 85% of VO2 max. And those were looked at over 30 minutes for all three of those work intensities. And then it was looked at over 2 hours for just the 25% and 65%, because it would not be possible to do 85% of VO2 max for 2 hours. And let's see what they found. Found, unsurprising for glucose usage, there was a linear increase in glucose usage with increase in exercise intensity. So here we have 25% exercise intensity, and here at the bottom, the x-axis, we have exercise duration, so up to 120 minutes. And on the y-axis here is millimoles per kilogram per minute of glucose usage. So at the 25% exercise intensity, glucose actually dropped, so it reduced. Whereas glucose during the 65% of VO2 max, there was a steady increase over time throughout the 2 hours. And same here at the bottom, this is 85% of VO2 max, sharp increase in glucose usage. So no shock there. And then fat usage, as we can see here, total fat oxidation, instead of glucose, which was a linear increase, fat oxidation had a bell curve where it was lower here at 25% exercise intensity, and at 65% of our VO2 max, which is a good estimation of our aerobic threshold, it was highest. And then fat dropped off again during high intensity efforts. Okay, gang. So some very interesting stuff here. So let's get oriented to this 3-bar graph. So this is on the bottom here is exercise intensity. So 25% VO2 max, 65, 85. And this is during 30 minutes of continuous exercise. And we can see the code here for all the different substrates that are being used. So plasma glucose, plasma free fatty acids. So plasma refers to fuel sources that are coming via your bloodstream. So plasma glucose, that can be ingested dietary, that can be a glycogen coming from your liver, for example. Plasma free fatty acids, the primary source of that is stored adipose tissue. So fat from your belly being mobilized into your bloodstream. Muscle triglycerides. So this is the main one here that increased at our aerobic threshold, and that is fat that is stored in the muscle that is being used. So if you're using your glutes and your quads, it's burning fat that is adjacent to the working muscle. And then the last one here, muscle glycogen, glycogen being the stored form of carbohydrates in our muscles. So some interesting things here. As we can see, total plasma energy use, so stuff coming from our bloodstream, as you can see here, is pretty much absolutely identical throughout all three exercise intensities. Yes, at 85%, we had more glucose, less free fatty acids, but overall plasma had an equal contribution. And where the increase came to meet the energy demands at our aerobic threshold here, 65% came from muscle triglycerides and glycogen. And same here at 85%, a lot more from glycogen. So the take-home message I want you guys to take from this for your training and also performance, mountain biking, ski touring, is eat high quality carbs and high quality fats before your effort. That's what I would take home from this scientific literature here, because the increase in energy demands is coming from stuff stored in our muscle. So not only would I carb load to get glycogen going up, potatoes, sweet potatoes, bananas, fruit, oatmeal, all that kind of things. Don't negate the healthy fats, almonds, avocado, olive oil, salmon, all that stuff. You need stored stuff in your muscles. Okay, and then moving on here, some other interesting stuff here. So now we're looking at a longer duration exercise here. So now we're looking at 120 minutes, so 2 hours of exercise duration. And this upper chart here, chart A, is 65% of VO2 max effort. And the bottom one here, B, is 25%. So we're not looking at 85% effort here. And some take homes here at 25%, so super chill. The substrate usage was pretty continuous. A little bit of blood glucose, plasma glucose here. The absolute overwhelming predominance here is plasma free fatty acid. So that means stored adipose tissue in your body from point A is coming to point B, working muscle via the bloodstream. And then we can see here a 65% workload. There are some changes over time. So plasma glucose, there's a slight increase over time, pretty minimal. Next up here, muscle glycogen, we see here is a constant decreasing trend. And that's basically just, it's getting used up. You have very finite stores of glycogen. Plasma-free fatty acids, again, stored adipose tissue, is increasing over time. You can see here at 2 hours, this had increased significantly from the start. And that's basically coming into play to match or make up for what's lost from glycogen. And same up top here, muscle TG, that's muscle triglycerides. So that's stored fat in the working muscle. And that also was decreasing over time. And similar to glycogen, that's just, there's not a lot of that, and it's running out. So take home message here is, once again, make sure your muscles are topped up. High quality carbs to fill in the glycogen, high quality fats to boost your muscle triglyceride stores. Last but not least, here on this page in this study, we want to look at these numbers here, epinephrine and norepinephrine. A take-home message before I bore you with boring numbers: when you're doing your green zone 2 work, do not spike above your aerobic threshold early on in your work. So if someone passes you on the bike path or whatever, you have to sprint to get up to speed from a red light, I don't care. Stay under your threshold. And the reason here, so epinephrine and norepinephrine are one of many signals in the body to start using glycogen and carbs. And you can see here at 85%, epinephrine spikes, as does norepinephrine, huge spikes in those, versus when you stay below 65%. And so if you did have a little spike during your green zone 2 work, you're then negating the main purpose of that workout, which is to condition your body to burn fat. So the circled graph here in red, you guys, is effort at 65% of VO2 max, and it's over a duration of 2 hours. And so you can see the changes in energy substrates that are being used. And the key here is that after 2 hours, the muscle glycogen has gone down and the plasma-free fatty acid is on a steadily increasing trend, and is the single majority fuel source. So my key takeaway from this, in terms of being an endurance athlete and wanting to improve our fat utilization, is if I had a choice between 1 2-hour ride or trail run or ski or whatever, between 1 2-hour session or 2 1-hour sessions, you should absolutely choose the longer single 2-hour session, because you'll have better fat adaptability. The previous study, as well as this one, and it's just widely accepted in the scientific literature, that when we're burning fat during aerobic activities, that fat is coming from either stored adipose tissue, or it's coming from intramuscular fat stores. And the contribution from ingested dietary fat is quite minimal. So the take-home message here, gang, is during your effort, we want to be eating high-quality carbs. And if you're sucking down pepperoni and cheese during your ride or your ski tour, then you're leaving performance potential on the table. So after the effort to recover, then absolutely we should be mixing in healthy fats, avocados, olive oil, salmon, nuts in with our carbs. But during the effort, we want to focus on carbs. This is basically for another video, but I'll just touch on it here. There has been a few studies researching diet manipulation, as in increasing fat, reducing carbohydrates, to try and get our bodies to burn more fat during aerobic exercise. So this study here, consuming an LCHF, so low carbohydrate, high fat diet during exercise training, increases the availability of fat, i.e. intramuscular triglyceride stores and plasma-free fatty acids. The latter there being the transportable form of stored adipose tissue, and decreases muscle glycogen stores. These changes in substrate availability increase a reliance on fat oxidation for energy production, while simultaneously a decreasing reliance on carbohydrate oxidation for fuel during a submaximal exercise. So, sounds promising. So the previous study definitely had some promising results for low fat, high carbohydrate as a way to increase fat oxidation. And they subsequently then also increased carbohydrate stores. And they found that they maintained the glycogen stores, but also increased fat oxidation. However, the rest of the scientific literature here is not as convinced. So, while intramuscular adaptations to low carbohydrate, high fat diets, with or without carbohydrate restoration, may theoretically benefit exercise capacity by enhancing fat utilization and sparing muscle glycogen stores, it is important to note that a consistent favorable effect on endurance-based performance outcomes have not been demonstrated. Although a few studies report performance benefits, the previous one, many show no changes or even performance decrements. So it's important with all this stuff that like we don't get stuck down in the weeds and zoom out periodically and focus on, are we getting better or are we not getting better?